story and came for your wounds, to show you what love sees when I see you. And I could listen to that line over and over again, just that Jesus is part of my story. Like, he created me. I'm in the story with him. It's a relationship of love, even when I fall, even when I'm weak. And he came for the wounds. And what a beautiful time during Lent to think, like, he came for our wounds, and then we can be there to console him with his wounds. And just that he's looking at us through this Lenten journey, through our whole journey. And just keep remembering, with a rough day, he came for my wounds. I can do this. He's already conquered and gained the graces that I need. So just keep reminding yourself he always sees you. You're never alone. And so just going back to Mary Magdalene, kind of jumping around, I'm kind of going to give you lots of little bits, and hopefully later you can take and go deeper where the Lord's calling you. Just imagine Mary Magdalene like this, the first time a man looked at her with such love. I just heard this incredible story. I don't know, it was on Father Barron, if any of you listened to his Sunday homilies. I think it was Father Barron. And he was sharing the story about the, I don't know what years, I was in the 15 or 1600s in England, and there was a group of bishops walking out of a cathedral. Does this sound familiar? Anyone listen to this? Did you, Bonnie, hear this recently? I don't remember the names of the bishops, but they were walking out of the cathedral, and they saw a woman of, like a prostitute, scantily dressed, and one of the priests was like, "Oh, guard your senses, don't look, don't look." And then the bishop just looked at her and smiled. And I don't know if he called someone to bring her later, or she came later and wanted to meet him, because she was just so taken back that this bishop stopped and saw her and looked at her with the love of Christ. With all the craziness in the world and the evil and people, like, we're quick to judge and like, oh, I don't want to be part of that, but sometimes it's just reaching out with that look of love, like what it does for our soul to be looked at with love and forgiveness. And so this woman had a major conversion, and I think she became a nun. Do you remember the story? So she became a nun, and I don't know if she's even a saint. Do you remember that part?
I don't remember.
No, but I'll have to get the rest of the story, but it's just coming back to mind now, like what the look of love, kindness, a smile, giving that to another person, and just, taking the time to sit. And if some of you are studying the journaling book, I know there's anyone on that team that's doing that book, like the first step of sitting and allowing the Lord to see you and journaling, what does he see? And it's amazing what comes out when I do that. I might be sitting there and he starts to see things that I don't even see about myself, or beautiful things that I don't know, like, or sometimes he jokes with me. One day he said, "Lorianne, I can see those bags under your eyes today. I know you didn't say it very well." I'm like, "Thanks, Jesus," So he sees it all. So allow yourself to be seen, to stop and be seen by him. So going on to point number 2, which this song kind of covered part of it. The apostle who beholds the Lord. So I think when we've experienced Jesus' mercy and his love like that, then we're drawn to go and be with him and just behold him. But the beautiful thing is, when we go to like Mary and sit at his feet, like if you go to adoration or just a time of prayer, go to mass, we think we're beholding him, but really he's beholding us. Like he's just waiting for us, and so glad that we're there. And I was reflecting a few days ago about Mary and the alabaster jar. I'm not going to read the whole passage, but this is the woman who sits at his feet. She brings her alabaster jar of costly ointment. She breaks it open. And for us, that can represent so many different things. Like, what is your alabaster jar? What is your costly ointment that you're holding on to? Maybe it's your time. Oh, this is my time. Like, I can't give this time, like I need my time, or maybe, I don't know. We each have our precious ointment that the Lord just wants us to come and surrender. Or maybe we're holding on to past wounds and pain just wants us to come and pour all that out and make that space and room in our heart, so that he can fill our heart with his grace, his goodness. Like, so what is that stuff in your heart that's just taking up that room, that's not allowing his grace to work fully? So just like maybe you want to take a prayer moment later and you just go and you sit there like, Lord, I want to break open whatever's holding me back from you. And then a little bit of the passage, Mary Magdalene, little type, the 16 there, sorry about my little typo. So Mary Magdalene at the foot of the cross, John 19, 25 to 27. Standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary of Magdala. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his home. Imagine being the one 2,000 years later that your name is mentioned, that you were at the foot of the cross. I'm not sure, I think Mary Magdalene's name is mentioned more than any other apostle in the Gospels. Isn't that cool? So here she is, faithful. She's experienced his love, the way he looks at her. She's gone and poured out all she's had. And just imagining her going, that conviction she had. Let's go back a little bit to her pouring her alabaster jar out. Like, she was convinced that she was invited, that she was chosen. Even though that room was full of men, she was like, I'm going in there. Like, the Lord has invited me. And he chose her to be one of his apostles. And she just felt so much love and conviction, like, I'm called to be part of this group. I'm called to be his servant. I'm called to follow him. So she has this conviction, which we all, like, I think for me as an apostle, it wanes, it goes up and down. Okay, yeah, courage, conviction, but then I might be asked to do something, or like, I don't know how to do that. Like when Bonnie asked me to give a talk on journaling, like, I can't do that. So, but it's like, go to the Lord, I go back to him, like, Lord, fill my heart. Like, I'm breaking my alabaster jar open of fears and insecurities, and he fills us up. And so, what do you need to help you be an apostle? Just like Mary, she kept going to his feet, she kept going, following him. And there she is. Let's jump back to the foot of the cross. And she is there with Our Lady. I can't even imagine. I mean, maybe some of you in your life have suffered in immense crosses of pain, and to stay there and to trust that the Lord is there with you, to see the Lord in the pain, whether our crosses are little or big. It can be scary. I'm not sure if I ever shared, remember the first Holy Week of COVID, like when everything shut down. And there was a lot of, did I share this story before? A lot of fears around, because we really didn't know everything of COVID, but I just remember having this intense fear that, what if I'm in the hospital alone and I can't breathe? And I remember sharing that with a good friend. It wasn't my spiritual director, but it was a spiritual friend. And she said, Lorianne, imagine that. Go down the line of the fear. Imagine that you're lying in the hospital bed and you can't breathe. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm holding Jesus' hand. She goes, well, don't you trust that he's going to be there with you if that happens? You know, so sometimes with the crosses, we have more fears of the potential crosses we might have, but when they come, and I remember when I got COVID the first time, yes, I was sick, and as the first day I realized I was in Louisiana, probably had to cancel things and not come here, but I wasn't even home, and I was at someone else's house. I'm like, oh no, I brought COVID to their house, you know, so, but I wasn't afraid. It was each day, okay, get through today, get through tomorrow. So just, like, for me, it's been a lesson of crosses seem so much bigger when you haven't received them yet. What ifs, when we're living in, oh, what if this happens to me? What if this happens to me? But when we usually get the cross, we get the grace. And some of you know Janet Lee is a Regnum Christi lady in Cincinnati, and she would always say, Lorianne, when you get to the station, Jesus is going to give you the ticket, quoting her. And it's so true, like when we get to that moment of suffering and we're at the foot of the cross or experiencing our own cross, he gives us the grace. So it's trusting, Lord, and I hope in you. I hope in you, and when we all join Regnum Christi, do you remember we received our crosses, and what did we say? Who remembers?
Hail, O cross,
Our
our
only hope. Wow, like, is that really our only hope in the moment? Like, okay, this little cross, like, so remember, our hope is in the cross. Like, it's not just pain and suffering, but it's redemption, and he's gained every grace we need for the suffering. And there is Mary Magdalene. Not all the other apostles are there. Her and John are the only, and mother of Mary, the wife of Clopas, and we know John is there. But she was the one who stuck it out. And so in the moment of that suffering, like to be there with our Lord, to adore him, to love him, or in the cross of our life, to invite him in, like, Jesus, I know you're here. I'm hoping in you. Hail the cross, my only hope. And Mary Magdalene shows us how to do that. And I love that it's a group of them helping one another. And we have that in the movement. Like, I'm sure many of you have been there for your fellow teammates, fellow members of Regnum Christi in dark and hard moments to help one another. And that's the beauty, the mystical body of the church, that we're there to help each other in those difficulties. How are we doing time-wise? Okay, we're going to go to the last point. The apostle who is sent by the Lord. So first, it's like the Lord sees her and is constantly beholding in this exchange of beholding one another, which is really prayer. So when we have received this love of the Lord and healing, we have to keep going back to this place of prayer. And then finally, he sends us. And so Mary staying outside the tomb weeping, and as she wept, she bent over in the tomb and saw two angels in white sitting there, one at the head and one at the feet, where the body of Jesus had been. And they said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? And she said to them, They have taken my Lord, and I don't know where they've laid him. When she said this, she turned around and saw Jesus there, but did not know it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for? She thought it was the gardener, and he said to her, Sir, if you carried him away, tell him where you've laid him. I will take him. Jesus said to her, Mary. She turned and said to him in Hebrew, Rabboni, which means teacher. Jesus said to her, Stop holding on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and tell them, I am going to my Father and your Father, to my God and my God. Mary Magdalene sent and announced to the disciples, I have seen the Lord. I have seen the Lord. How can we not, when we encounter him, when we have those special moments, maybe an incredible adoration or retreat? I remember the first retreat I went on. I don't know if any of you had this experience, first spiritual exercises. Like, I left like a different person, and I was like a crazy woman, like Mary Magdalene. Like, I have seen the Lord, like telling my brothers and sisters and my mother, and I was even in a family where sometimes I went to daily mass, but I had not seen the Lord, or I had not realized he sees me. And I love here how he calls her by name. And I encourage you to do that in your journaling as well. Like, sit there and listen to, Jesus, what are you calling me? What's my name? See what name he gives you. Maybe he gives you like a nickname. I had that recently with a woman in spiritual direction. She goes, Jesus called me this. And it was a nickname that she had when she was a little girl. Like, you don't know, like, he has his own ways of endearment with each of us. How does he call you? And how does he send you out? And do you have the conviction and the courage that Mary Magdalene had? And like I said, we don't always have that. And it wanes, it goes up and down, but beg for it. Like, I want to be Jesus. I want to be an apostle like Mary Magdalene. I don't want to be afraid to, I'm just thinking, like, I'm going to show you a fail I have. Like, there's this man who comes to daily mass at St. Catherine's of Siena with his 2 daughters. I mean, like, they're probably like 15 and 11. And I'm like, I've heard the Lord say, you should invite them to come to a retreat, girls' retreat. You should go introduce yourself. I haven't. I switched my mass and went to an evening mass. They're there. And I heard the Lord say, you should invite those girls, you should go with them. And I still haven't done it. And we just had middle school retreat. And I'm like, well, maybe I can invite them for summer camp. So if you all pray for me. But I just want to share, like, even being consecrated for 26 years, there's times I lack courage too. But I should have got on my knees and like, Lord, give me the courage. If you want me to invite them, you show me how. Help me bump into them going out the door or something, you know, like, it's those little things. It's so normal. We're all Catholic. We're going to the same mass. I see them like probably 3 or 4 times a week. Why would I not go introduce myself or ask their names? Why not? Fear, human respect. What's holding me back? So, but I don't think Mary Magdalene had that when she went off running. She was like, I have seen the Lord. So I'm going to play the last song and just give you some silent time to listen to that. And just allow the Lord to see you and maybe recall that moment in your life when you know you've seen the Lord. This song is from the Vigil Project, and if you find it on the papers, it's, everyone have it? I've seen the Lord. The Vigil Project is a group from Louisiana making beautiful music. So if they ever come to Lafayette, definitely. Have they come here? Have you heard of them? The Vigil? No?
I think they're, yes. I don't know if they've come. Yeah.
This isn't Father Jaime's group. This is a different one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But he plays with them sometimes.
Okay.
And so did Father Gregory Usselman, I think, played with them sometimes. Vigil. So after this song, just take a little silent time to go deeper in 1 or 2 of the points and until